Hello everyone, this is Mr. Lawback. In this video, we're going to go over the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, what their opposing views were, and we're also going to take a look at the Federalist Papers and the purpose that they served. Ratification for the Constitution was fiercely debated for almost a year. Supporters of the Constitution and its strong federal government were known as Federalists. Opponents who feared that the new government would be too strong were known as Anti-Federalists. Federalists were most common along the Atlantic coast and near the larger cities, while Anti-Federalists tended to be small farmers and settled on the western frontier. So let's take a look at the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists and their positions on varying things. So the Constitution. The Federalists were in favor of the Constitution and wanted it ratified. The Anti-Federalists were against the Constitution. Now, on the Articles of Confederation, the Federalists wanted to abandon the Articles of Confederation. They argued that Shays' Rebellion underscored how the government under the Articles of Confederation was not powerful enough. The Anti-Federalists, on the other hand, felt that the Articles of Confederation just needed to be amended or fixed. Powers of the state. The Federalists believed that the power of the state was too great and it should be curbed a little bit and more power should be given to a central government. The Anti-Federalists, on the other hand, felt that the states should have the highest amount of power since they were closest to the people. They warned the proposed Constitution would create a powerful central government dominated by, quote, a great mighty president and a Senate composed of wealthy men who would swallow all of us little folks. The Federalists did not think a Bill of Rights was needed, especially since state constitutions already had a Bill of Rights on them. The Anti-Federalists were concerned about too strong of a central government, and they feel that a lack of Bill of Rights was a threat to liberties. Size of the republic or the representative democracy. The Federalists believed the bigger the better, and that would better protect abuse of power when it was a large republic. Anti-Federalists thought small was better, that states could manage and protect from the abuse of power better. Now, who supported? The majority of the Federalists were wealthy but common citizens also. And again, they were near the cities and along the coast. Anti-Federalists, smaller farmers and those that owed money and those out on the frontier were most of your Anti-Federalists. So let's talk a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages of each. First, the advantages of the Federalists. They had strong leaders, they were well organized, and there was widespread concern about the problems under the Articles of Confederation. Advantage of the Anti-Federalists. There was widespread distrust of a government being too powerful, as a Revolutionary War, which fought exactly against this, took place not too long before this. Now, the disadvantages. For the Federalists, the Constitution was new and untried and never had been used anywhere else in the world, so it was an unknown. Another disadvantage was that there was no Bill of Rights. A disadvantage for the Anti-Federalists was that they were less united than the Federalists. Now, examples of Federalists were James Madison, George Washington, and Alexander Hamilton. Anti-Federalists were Patrick Henry, Thomas Jefferson, and Sam Adams. Now let's talk about the Federalist Papers. A key element in the Federalist campaign for the Constitution was a series of highly persuasive essays written for a New York newspaper by James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay. They were written under the pseudonym Publius, so the readers could not outwardly tell who wrote them, but many readers knew that it in fact was these three. Now, of Hamilton, Jay, and Madison, Hamilton wrote 51 of the 85. The 85 essays, later published in a book formed as the Federalist Papers, presented reasons for believing in the practicality of each of the major provisions of the Constitution. Now, these essays were basically presented as opinion pieces or editorials in newspapers. So they started in New York, but ended up being published all throughout the 13 states. And remember, Americans at this time were very avid readers. The Federalist Papers are considered a definitive explanation for the theoretical underpinnings of the Constitution. For example, in Federalist number 10, Madison argued that political factions are undesirable but inevitable. He believed that a large republic with three branches of government would disperse power and thus curb the power of factions or interest groups or political parties. Now, ultimately, of course, the Federalists prevailed as conventions in all 13 states ratified the Constitution. But many skeptics questioned if the bold and risky decisions to transfer sovereignty from the states to a stronger national government would work. A big takeaway is that the arguments of the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, who should have more power, the state or the national government, is an ongoing discussion throughout American history and even into modern times. To this day, the Federalist Papers are read often by historians and politicians, and they are often cited in arguments about what the role of the government should be. So they have really withstood the test of time.